I want to talk to you about puberty and psychopathology. Puberty is a time of increased onset of several neuropsychiatric disorders. However, across the pubertal transition, demarcated here by the white dashed line, there is a demonstrable sex difference in disease prevalence, such that girls show a 2- to 3-fold increase in onset of mood and anxiety disorders compared to boys. So one hypothesis is that the activation of the reproductive axis and the production of gonadal hormones, including estrogen, increases disease vulnerability for girls at this time. However, to understand how puberty itself may affect disease vulnerability, one must first understand how puberty affects neurodevelopment. So to begin to answer this question, I asked a very simple first question. Prior to the onset of puberty, at that first dashed line, are there any visible sex differences in brain function? To do this, I studied a cohort of typically developing 8-year-old children prior to the onset of puberty, using a neuroimaging paradigm which allows me to look at brain function, specifically how brain areas communicate with each other, measuring their functional connectivity, while children rested in an MRI scanner. I then use an analysis tool which allows me to go through the brain voxel by voxel to identify those that show the greatest difference between boys and girls. The result of this analysis identified a region in the medial prefrontal cortex, an area typically associated with autobiographical memory and part of a larger systems-level network called the default mode network. Importantly, the default mode network is often dysregulated in both mood and anxiety disorders in adulthood. We then hypothesized that girls might actually be showing increased connectivity within the default mode network compared to boys, which might elevate their disease vulnerability. However, as our first analysis only identified the voxels that showed the greatest differences, we had to conduct a secondary analysis to understand the directionality and magnitude of those differences. The results of the second analysis are at the bottom. We found 7 regions that showed greater medial prefrontal cortex connectivity in girls compared to boys, and none where boys were greater than girls. When you identify these regions, what you see is twofold. 1, increased connectivity between the prefrontal cortex and other regions in that same default mode network. And then 2, increased connectivity in regions within a secondary network called the executive control network, which is responsible for decision-making, working memory, and cognitive control. The key take-home here is that prior to the onset of puberty, girls show greater within-network and between-network connectivity in a circuit that is associated with both mood and anxiety disorders in adults. This highlights the connectivity of these circuits as a key point of vulnerability that may confer risk to girls across the pubertal transition and may be altered by activation of the reproductive axis and/or gonadal hormones at this time.